Hello, everybody, and welcome to Indigo Talk. I'm your host, Chastity Ryan of Indigorayhealing, and I'm super excited about this episode, which is called Talking to Heaven. And we're going to really have a candid conversation about mediumship. And when I came up with this episode, there was literally only one person that I thought about that would be perfect as a guest. And she's here with me today, Courtney. Hello, welcome, welcome.
Hi. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Like we've been talking about this for like a couple of weeks now since
I know. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I'm
I'm
happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. And like I again, you were the first person that I had thought of when it came to doing this episode because
Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
because you're just so amazing at what you do, and it's like
Thank you. I appreciate that.
it just comes very naturally. And what I found, like when you had came to me and asked me if I would like to be read, I was like, oh heck yeah. You don't even have to ask. I'm down for it. And
Well, I was happy that you said yes and agreed to it.
yeah, and I just remember how just the energy of it, because I really love that you make you make them feel comfortable.
Thank you.
And that was the first thing, because a lot of times I think going into a mediumship reading, people are kind of like, oh my gosh, they're a bit overwhelmed because they don't know exactly what's going to come in or
Yeah.
who's going to come in. So
Yeah, it can be a little scary and a little nerve-wracking, Yeah, I understand that for sure.
yeah. And I mean, I had one before, I had told you, and I guess I kind of knew more or less what to expect this time around. So I was kind of like excited. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, I was definitely excited as well. Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So I have a couple of questions.
Okay, great.
More than a couple.
Okay, that's fine.
Because like there's so many things like that I want to touch on, and you want to as well, because we discussed this prior
Yeah.
to coming on here. And I think the first thing is like, can you tell us of your humble beginnings? Like, when did you know that you had this ability?
Well, I think, for me now, we were talking about kind of connecting the dots because, when you're little and you have these experiences, you don't have the words you don't know what a medium is. You don't know what any of those kind of words mean or anything. But now looking back, I did, I had a lot of experiences as a child. There were things that I would know without any way of knowing. My mom would tell me that I would say, oh, the phone's ringing and it's going to be, I don't know, whoever's on the phone. And she'd be like, well, the phone's not ringing. And then a minute later, the phone would ring and it would be that person. I would see shadows, I would feel little taps or hear things, but I think mostly I would see shadows. And then I remember being in my room and just like, when I was little, I would completely like wrap myself up like a burrito because I was like, someone's going to touch me, or if my foot's exposed, I'm going to feel something on my foot, because I would always feel something. So it wasn't until later that I, like you said, just kind of connected the dots. Okay, that's what it was. And I had, out of body experiences, just a lot of different things.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's so funny that you mentioned the whole wrapping yourself like a burrito, because I can't even tell you as a child how many times I have done that.
Yeah. I mean, I think
The covers would just go over like, oh my gosh, what's going on here?
and I would push my bed, so like I would push my bed up to the corner so that I could see the window and the door. I think because I always felt like something was going or someone was going to come in. I don't know. And if you don't have the words to express it or someone to share that with, it's scary for a child.
Exactly.
And then I think, you know, so that, you know, I had an out of body experience when I was maybe 4 or 5. I had gone to my grandmother's house, and they had, you know, a big yard, or when you're little, it seemed pretty big. And apparently I thought it was a good idea to eat rat poison, because they had put poison out there for, you know, the animals, or for the rats or something. And I ate it. And so the next thing I remember, I am literally like, I'm watching myself being worked on by a doctor. And so I've always had those memories in my head. I didn't know what it was. And I think if I tried to express it, it was kind of like, you know, that just sounds odd, you know, but I've never not known these things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, oh gosh, like literally my hairs are standing up right now because I had a similar experience. I was about the same age. I was 5 and I was swinging on a swing in a park, I believe, across the street. Interesting enough, the park was across the street from a children's hospital. This is, I was living in Philadelphia at the time. So the hospital, St. Christopher's Children's Hospital, was like right across the street. And you remember like the old school like swings that were steel?
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yes.
Those are like super dangerous. Like I don't even know how they allowed
they didn't pass code now.
I really don't know how back in the day they just allowed kids to play on those steel swings, because I had seen crazy stuff over the years. Like a girl get her mouth busted from getting hit with the swing.
Yeah.
I remember I was young and I had witnessed that. But what happened to me was I was swinging like really fast and I fell, hit the back of my head, and I started to convulse. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember, and now that you've mentioned that, it had to be an outer body experience because I had saw myself, my dad was carrying me.
Right.
Right. And he was running to the hospital across the street. And I had saw him from above.
Right.
And I was looking down, seeing my dad carry me and running to the hospital, to the emergency room with me, because I was convulsing. So I was just like, but I was able to see myself in him.
And I think because when you go through an experience like that, you know, like for me being in the hospital, I'm sure I was under some sort of anesthetic or something. And so I think that you really are between two worlds. You know, you're here, your physical body may be here, but your energy, spiritual body may be here. And so I think that's part of what that was.
Right.
But yeah, looking back, I'm like, wow, there's always been, you know, some little experience that didn't make sense until now.
Yeah. And I knew something was like, I had an understanding of it. Like you said, because I was 5. So I was able to, okay, this is different. Something's happening here. And like, I remember that I saw my dad carrying me. And then I remember, like you said, in the doctor, I would say maybe operating room or something, or the examination room, you know, they have that bright light that they kind of hover over you. Right. And I remember just seeing that. And then my mom and my dad and just the doctor. And then like, I just kind of, I don't know. It's like you feel like you kind of jump timelines, because from there I was in my room, in the hospital room, and you know, the children's beds with that kind of look like a crib.
Oh yeah.
I just remember kind of just waking up from all of that, and I'm in that crib-like bed, and like my mom is there, and she's like, "Oh, hey baby, are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I had a little bit of a journey, but now I'm here." You know, like I was kind of up in the ethers, but I'm here now.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah, so it was just like, and it's so weird, like I'm having that epiphany now as I'm talking to you, because it most certainly was an outer body experience, but it's like I never really connected that till now, like talking to you. That's so crazy. Like it's just something like I kind of just kept to myself, but that I remember, you know. And as a child, I mean, you only remember little key things in your childhood, like, because I was 5, so that was a long time ago. So
yeah.
But that I honestly do remember. And there's a few things that stood with me. And my first mediumship experience was also 5 years old, just like you. And I was living in Philadelphia. We lived in a house. And I had a pretty big room. And, you know, had that dark paneling. It was
Okay,
dark,
yeah.
it was kind of dark in my room, and I had like one window in the corner. Not much light came out of it. But I noticed that I would see a woman all the time in my room, just a sad woman. She would look out the window, and like she wasn't menacing. I was a child, so I would just be, you're curious, you're naturally curious. And I remember just looking at her like, why is that woman so sad? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I felt bad for her. Like, I guess there was like just an empathetic reaction to her. Like, she's so sad, And she turned around and looked at me. And that's when I got scared. I was like, oh my God, she looked at me. Like, like I kind of froze. Like I was literally sitting down and I had a toy chest with like all my Barbies and toys. And I was playing with them. And she was just there. And then she looked at me and I just froze. I was like, and I knew her name. Her name was Jessica. And I would talk about her a lot. I was like, Mom, Jessica was in my room again. She's so sad, Mom. And my mom was like, oh, that's so cute. You have an imaginary friend. And I'm like, oh, Mommy, she's not imaginary. She talks to me. She lives in my room.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, that's, like my mom just brushed it off like an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
And I would get frustrated, like as a child. No, Mom, she's not imaginary. Okay? Like I would get upset about it, and Mom would just be like, she'll cook or wash dishes and be like, okay, honey, all right, okay, she's real, like she'll just kind of okay, but like she didn't believe me. I knew it, and I think that's what bugged me. I'm like, Mommy, but she's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember a couple of months later, my brother Jay, we were sitting down, we were watching cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. Like we got up super early. I think my mom and dad, they were still sleeping. We ran downstairs, we were watching cartoons, and my brother had saw her.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
So I didn't feel like the alien anymore because my brother. I didn't feel like the weirdo anymore because my brother saw her. Yeah. And he had just gotten like, he was shocked. And he was like, my first reaction was his. And I remember he just kind of put his legs up on the couch and just held his legs like, what the heck is going on? And I was like, nothing. I just looked at him. I'm like, oh, that's Jessica. And he was like, you're not scared? And I'm like, no, that's Jessica. She's my friend. And so I guess because of my reaction, and oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps right now because I think my brother's here. For those of you that don't know, my brother passed. So I think as I'm talking right now, he's here because like my hair is literally standing up. So he's probably giggling at this right now because he remembers. So I kind of calmed him down because he was freaked out about it. And I was just like, and then a couple of weeks later, I went with my dad across the street to visit a neighbor. My dad used to hang out with a neighbor, and they used to kind of play cards and, do guy stuff, have a beer and all that. And he had a son that I used to play with. So I begged him. I was like, Dad, please, can I go with you? He said, all right, come along. So I went across the street to the house, and I was playing tag with my neighbor's son. And, you're running all over the house and stuff like that. And I ran up the stairs to the second floor, and, there was pictures on the wall. So I stopped in my tracks because I noticed the picture. And there was a woman in the picture, and she looked very familiar. So I just stopped, and I just stared at it. It was Jessica, the woman that I see in my room.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah. So Dad is like, Chas, come on, it's time to go. And I'm like, I'm just frozen there because I'm just looking at her picture. And they came upstairs to get me. And I said, Daddy, that's Jessica. She's in my room. And that's my friend. And I'm just pointing at the picture. Mm-hmm. And my dad's like, huh? And then his neighbor, I remember his name. His name was Snooky, like Jersey Shore Snooky. That was his name. That's why I would never forget it. And Mr. Snooky, that's what I used to call him. He was just like, what did you say? Like, what? And I'm like, that's Jessica. She's in my room. We talk. She's my friend. And I was just like telling him, like, just very normally. And he was like, okay. all right, come downstairs. And then he's like, oh, come sit on my lap, right? So he tells me, sit on my lap and tell me everything. And I just told him, I said, well, she's in my room. She talks to me. She's always sad, right? And he was just like, he could not even bring into words. Turns out that was his girlfriend. And she did live across the street in our house and had passed from an asthma attack in my room. And her name was, he used to call her Jessie. That was his nickname for her. But I called her Jessica. That was her real name. But he used to call her Jessie.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
So that was, my dad was there that day. And then I remember we're walking back home. And this is what I was telling you before we got on live here, that my dad was like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's just kind of keep this between us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know, like, because I know it'll kind of freak out your mom. So, and your brother. So I said, well, Jay saw him too. I mean, Jay saw her too. Like, you know, like that is not a big deal. Jay saw her. You know, like I wasn't the only one.
Right.
Oh, he was like, oh, he saw her too. I said, yeah. And he was like, okay, well, let's just kind of keep it to ourselves. And like, he was just really cool about it. And because my grandmother, my father's mother, she had mediumship ability too. I mean, she did it for a living. So, and I had no idea about this back then. I was a child. I didn't find that out about her until I was maybe 18 years old. So,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So that was my earliest experience. And yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah. And like I said, it was so many years ago, but I just remember it like yesterday, like certain things just stay with you. And that one thing is just like, it would always stay with me. And I feel like that was kind of the foundation from there. Like I just started to realize what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she was always around. Like I remember when we moved to New York from Philadelphia, moving day, I looked up and she was just looking out the window and I could see her. I think she was like kind of saying goodbye. Like,
yeah,
she was sad to see us go and stuff. Like, but yeah, like that's one of my earliest, most vivid experiences of it. So
that's incredible. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my mom is watching right now, but if she is, she'll probably remember that. So yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
So, and you and I were also talking about this, about for those of us that have children who show ability like this.
Mm-hmm.
So very often, they're dismissed or, don't talk about that stuff, or, like no one believes them, and it kind of feel invalidated with it. And I think it's so important to really support your children when they're having these experiences, because like you said, as a child, it's so scary.
Right. Well, and I think too, part of it is, that fear is pretty much learned. And so sometimes if you're not able to express that, you're not scared of it until someone tells you to be scared of it, but, certain things like that can be disturbing for a young child if they're not able to express it. But, like with my own child, my children, I know that my daughter has seen spirit, and and when this started happening with her, when she was about 3, is when my father transitioned, and so he was appearing to her and coming to her, and she would tell me what he said, and she would share, like she would see him, like she'd look out the car window and she'd see him, or she'd be in her little playroom and she would say stuff like she was talking to him. And so then it got me remembering, like, wow, yeah, I remember that as a child, feeling and experiencing spirit the same way she does. And so, I didn't, prompt her, ask her questions or anything like that. I just let her say what she needed to say and express. But even now, I mean, she's going to be 12, and she's very aware of spirit. She's aware of people's, she's an empath, and my son is as well. I mean, he's just very compassionate and loving and just such a sweetheart. And she's, you're going through that transition period where she's got a lot going on, and then this as well. So I share my experiences with her, and teach her boundaries, because boundaries is huge if you're going to do this type of work, or you are someone that is extremely sensitive to energy. Boundaries is really self-care, and so I want her to learn that as well. But it's an ongoing journey, and we're learning together, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think that it's commendable as a parent that you are supportive. And
Thank you.
because my niece, actually my youngest niece, Nora, she most definitely showed signs, and I told you this very early.
Mm-hmm.
The youngest I would say that I remember is like 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And she would be in the crib and she'll be laughing and giggling, and and we'll go in like, oh, what's going on? And she'll
Yeah.
go, man, lady, or she'll look up at at the ceiling, and
Yeah.
she'll just laugh and giggle and stuff like that. And I remember when she started walking, she walked in from the living room to the kitchen, just stood at the beginning of the kitchen and just was like, man, and she just pointed,
Mm-hmm.
man. And at the time, this was my apartment in New York City. I did have what you call a spiritual roommate, and he was a man, uh, like in his, I would say, mid-20s, very tall. I would say way past 6 feet, maybe 6'3", 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
And his name was Walter. I that's the name that he told me. That's what I heard. So that was his.
Mm-hmm.
And when my niece just went, well, like, man, and I knew when she pointed really high because he was
Yeah.
tall, I was like, oh, that's Walter. Like, like I knew who she saw. And then
Mm-hmm.
when she would be in the crib, she would laugh and giggle, and I believe he was playing with her and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, my sister has my niece who's a baby, and my dad had already transitioned when she was born, but um when she was really little, my sister, we would talk, and my niece was little, and she would be giggling or looking off, and we felt my dad there, because we're sensitive to that, we're open to it. We knew what she was seeing and we knew what she was experiencing, but I mean, babies, children, animals, they're all very open and sensitive to spirit and to energy, because they don't have all these blocks that we have, and all the fear
Exactly.
that we grow into, and so I think that's, it's very common for children to sense that, because there is no fear, it's all love for them, and it's not until you get to our age that we, like, there's these fears, fear of judgment, fear of what maybe our parents have taught us, or all those kind of things. They don't have that.
And
So I think
that's
it's
so
pretty
true.
common. Huh?
That is exactly right. And I think as adults, like I said, we develop these blockages and belief systems and things that kind of hinder us from really fully embracing it.
Right.
And that's why I was so adamant about doing this episode, because this is a part of me that honestly I have been afraid of for
Okay.
so for so long. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that boy in The Sixth Sense who was terrified constantly. That's what it was for me, because I really had no one that could really help me cultivate this properly. Like,
Mhm.
I just was, I didn't want it. Like, I don't want to see anymore. Like, I just used to freak out.
Okay.
And I think that's what it was. Like, my dad was and he was the only one that did understand what was going on, but
Mhm.
he worked a lot, and he had to support the family, so I really couldn't really talk to him about it as much as I had liked to.
Mhm.
And my grandmother at that point already had passed, so there was really no one that I could, like I said, like, really have to
Share that with.
explain this to me. I just
Right. Yeah.
And every time I would confide in someone, it was sort of like they would freak out. Like, "Oh my
Mhm.
God, what?" Like, "What are you
Yeah.
saying?" And I'm like, I kind of felt
Well,
like,
I think, and you know, it's widely more, it's accepted now a little bit more, but I think there's been misconceptions about mediumship, what mediumship really is, the purpose of mediumship, and also mediums in general. You know, there's a big misconception, I feel, because I've experienced it myself. I never had the fear of seeing something evil, or, you know, opening myself up to anything. I don't know what the words people use, evil, demonic, all that. I've never had that fear. I still don't have that fear. I don't have those experiences. So that's not something I've ever felt. I think it was more the fear of being judged. Being judged by, you know, your friends and your family. And then also, now that I have children, you know, I'm sometimes worried about what their friends' parents may think, or, you know, but the true essence of mediumship and what mediumship is really about is about love. It's about really connecting the two worlds and letting someone know that, yes, your loved one isn't here physically, but they're by no means dead, and they're not gone. They're not lost. You know, they're still very much around. It's just in a different form than when they were in the physical world. And so it's, you know, it's nothing to fear. So if I could really express that, I would really want that to come out, because so many people have this fear of what kind of information a mediumship is going to give, or like I said, the kind of life that a medium may live. You know, we don't go around I don't know, predicting the future, or, you know, with a wart on our nose like a witch, or, you know, it's
with the crystal ball.
Yeah, and if you have that, that's fine too. But that's nothing. It's nothing to do with anything evil or scary or demonic or anything like that. So if I could just say that, that would be awesome to get that out.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that we're addressing this, because again, this was kind of the stigma that I had over me with this for so long. Like, this is something frowned upon, this was something evil, like this is something scary.
And that's because it is, you know, but a lot of times that comes from religious doctrines that people may be born into a religious family, or maybe well-meaning ministers and all those kind of people. You know, they put that fear into people because there's not a real understanding, and I get that. I totally get that. But you know, people have to use their own discernment and use their own, you know, knowledge and their own understanding to really open themselves up to just being open-minded, I would say.
Exactly. And you know what? That's another thing in my experience, and in my understanding. Like, I had reached a realization with mediumship that there's no dogma attached to it. There's no specific religion or dogma. It is simply, again, and you and I have discussed this, this is simply an ability that we all collectively have and can tap into if we so choose.
Yes, I completely agree with that, for sure.
Like, I have friends that are pagan, that are mediums. I have friends that are Jewish, that are Muslim, that are Christian.
Right.
And again, that is really has nothing to do with it. Again, it's an ability that we have. And again, you know, some people, and if you feel that, if that's what you believe, then, you know, more power to you. I respect that, again, but it's not some sort of curse. This is something I was born with, and this is something that I've been able to tap into, you as well. And during my spiritual awakening, I had relinquished that fear and those belief systems. It's still a work in progress. Like I said, I still have moments where I feel energies and I feel someone's around, something's around, and I immediately kind of have that freak out, kind of stand still. Okay, something's here. Okay. You know, you know, like, I still have my little moments where I get a little scared. I have my moment, but now it's like I have that innate understanding that it's nothing to fear. and
Right.
there never really was anything to fear.
And you can set up your boundaries,
Exactly.
and that's part of being, that's part of self-care, really. If you're empathic, or you do energy work, or whatever it is that you do, you have to be really, and it's just, even when you set up boundaries with your friends or with your family, it's the same thing. You have to set up those boundaries. I mean, I have 2 children. I have an amazing husband. I can't constantly be tapping into, and I don't want to either,
Exactly.
So I don't go around, tapping into everyone's energy or anything like that, because that would be completely draining. And plus, it's none of my business. And so you just have to really be strong about setting up those boundaries, and really practicing self-care is huge as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I have gotten solicited for a mediumship reading before several times with people, and the energy was just off and I couldn't do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I think you could agree with me on this. You would know if the person is really going to be receptive, or if there's something a bit off or not so good that you're feeling, that will kind of, you would have to set that boundary. Maybe now is not a good time. I'm not feeling
Yeah, and I
energetically.
think one of the things we were going to talk about too is getting, what can you do to get the most out of a mediumship reading?
Yes.
And I would say that would be, categorized into that. A lot of people, sometimes people don't understand what a mediumship reading is,
Mm.
and what kind of information, like I said, you're going to get. So just opening the conversation to that too, and letting them know before they get to wherever they're going to do the reading, so that their expectations are reasonable. And a lot of people, I think that they're open, and some people are not open, and that's okay. So if people are waiting for that one person to come through, or that one piece of evidence, and if that one piece of evidence doesn't come through, they're not going to believe it. They're only blocking themselves to some really great, amazing information or message that may come through, because they're going to be so closed off and waiting to hear that one piece of information that may not come through.
Yes.
And so, or even when a certain loved one or friend comes through, maybe that's not the person they want to hear from, but I always trust that spirit knows what we need before we need it. So that may lead into another message that you may need to hear. So really being open to that information. If not, there will be some disappointment, and you will be blocking yourself from something that could really be beneficial and healing for you.
Exactly. And I had touched on this in my last Indigo talk about the most important thing about how to get the most out of a reading is, first and foremost, to have an open mind, to go in with an open mind, because just like you said, they may go in wanting certain information and other things will just come in. And again, don't shoot the messenger. We're just, what's coming in is coming in, and we honestly have no control of that. And I feel like when that happens, these are things that are important messages from spirit, that
Right.
they're using us as that conduit to relay to you. You know what I mean? You may come in for a love reading, and then something will come in for your health or your career, or maybe something about a previous life, or something about your children and your family. Other things will come up again, and I feel these are things that are important and need to be addressed to you. And like, I had an issue where, okay, do I tell them this because this isn't exactly what they asked? But now I know that whatever comes in, I stress this. I make it known even before I get started. Like, just bear in mind that there's going to be things that are going to come in. It may not necessarily be what you're asking for, but like, again, don't shoot the messenger, because when I get the stuff coming in, it's just going to come out.
And for me personally, when I do readings, I don't know if every medium agrees with this or not, but it really is a 3-way conversation. It's spirit, the person sitting in front of me, and me. So we want to create an environment that's loving, and that's calming, and that's really going to open everyone up. So if someone comes in and, you know, maybe they're very fresh in their grief, or their grief is very, like I said, very new and very raw for them, maybe it's not the right time for that reading, but, or anger or anything like that. So it's really, when someone comes, you know, I want them to feel as comfortable as possible. And because it's also going to get me to be able to hold that link a little bit more, you know, because in a reading, you have a lot going on. You have the person sitting in front of you, their emotions. You have your own ego that you have to push aside. That's telling you, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you, you know? And then you have spirit coming through, and it's coming through pretty quickly. So you may hear something, you may see something, and it's kind of putting the pieces of the story together, and it's putting pieces of a puzzle together, but it's a lot of stuff at one time. So you have 3 things going on. So it's better if the person kind of comes in, obviously, with love and with openness, so that the information and the energy that we are going to form together is very clear and crisp, and will flow easier. I hope that makes sense. But that's what
perfect.
I experienced.
I couldn't have said it any better, seriously, because that is exactly how it is. And I'm so glad that you explain that with such clear and concise detail, because that is exactly how it is for us. You know, when you're getting the messages and the downloads, it's just like there's a bunch of things at once, and you're just, like you said, you're just trying to process it and figure out a way of expressing it that it makes sense. Because sometimes you just get something coming in, and it'll just be maybe a symbol or a word or something,
Right.
and you're like, this is what I'm getting right now. And you know, sometimes it'll just be a keyword, or you'll get a vision of something, you know, like the beach, or, you know, someone swimming, and you'll just get these little things, and there'll just be other things coming in. And like I said, this is why I always stress about the openness of it, and coming in a positive space of love is so true. You know what I mean? Literally, that happened to me yesterday.
I would encourage people to, you know, if you're someone that prays, pray before you come. If you enjoy meditation, you know, take a couple of moments to go within, you know, and either pray or meditate before you come. And that'll also calm you down, and get you prepared to be in that space, you know.
Exactly.
So that would be huge. And also, you know that mediums are human.
Exactly.
Or we're going to get things wrong, and they may not make sense. They may make sense later, or I may,
Exactly.
you know, if you know, I don't always get names, but let's say I hear the name Bill, and the man's name was Phil. Okay, well, you know, I'm human. I could have heard wrong, you know?
Yes.
And know that it's not as clear as a phone call. It's not as clear as you and I are talking right now, you know, because you're communicating with someone that no longer has a physical voice. And
Exactly.
so they're really going to use your own frame of reference, your own symbolizations, your own life experiences to convey that message. And sometimes I may not be the medium for you, because maybe your dad or your mom was a world traveler. I'm not a world traveler. So I wouldn't have those experiences that person would need to convey a certain message. So, you know, we cannot guarantee who's going to come forward, but they will definitely, you know, it's like telepathic messages that you're receiving, you know, and a feeling or a scent, or, you know, it's just so many things that are going on at one time. But definitely I would say, you know, to expect certain things not to make sense. You know, it can't be 100%.
Exactly. Yes.
So have a little grace with that, because we are human.
Right.
So.
But again, I'm just going to tell you guys, to the subscribers and to everyone that's watching, she is amazing. Okay. So
Thank you.
Everybody that I have on, so that I've had on Indigo Talk so far, have read for me. So I could just, as a client, from the client perspective, will tell you, she's amazing, guys. Like, Kathy is the
Thank you so much.
You are the bee's knees, girl. Like, I'm telling you,
Thank you. thank you so much. I mean, what I'm sharing is from my very limited experience. And when I say that is because I won't know the truth until I get to spirit myself.
Right.
And hopefully when I get there, they think that I've done a little bit of a decent job representing them as well as I possibly can in my physical form. But it really, it's my passion, and it's something that I enjoy, and it's not what I do, it's who I am.
Exactly.
So it's really important for me to express that. And, I'm not the medium for everyone. I'm not 100% accurate every single time, but I will tell you that I am doing this work from my heart, and it's something that like I said, it makes me tear up, because to have these moments, these real raw, amazing moments where you're just sharing this with someone, it's so humbling. And like I said, it makes me cry, because I just, every time I come out of a reading, I'm just like so humbled by the experience,
Right.
So it's important for me to uphold that and to be able to express that. So thank you for your kind words.
It's honest words.
Thank you.
Like
Thank you.
I know the goods when I see it. And I think, and I feel honestly that it's that authenticity in your craft and what you do that shines through and makes you so great.
Thank you.
Because I'm really glad you touched on this, because as readers sometimes, and we get certain things wrong, we're like, oh, we're wrong, like I had like this kind of perfectionist edge, like everything I said had to be 100% accurate, because if not, that means I'm not good at what I do. Like I had that belief system. I remember very early on when I started doing my readings, and then as you grow, and evolve and ascend into this further, you start understanding again that we are human beings. Right. And readings are not always going to be 100% accurate. They're not always going to be exactly, they're not going to go exactly according to plan. And it's just to strive to be the best version of yourself you can be, and make the client feel comfortable, and for them to leave the session feeling enlightened, empowered, energized, because that's my mantra here on Indigo Ray TV. Enlighten, empower, energize, because that is initially my goal for everyone that's watching, and even for clients and students of mine. That's initially what I want.
Right.
And I feel that's the most important part of it. Like you said, you leave feeling the same way. It's a mutual experience. It's a mutual exchange.
It's just seeing someone's reaction to realizing that their loved one is not far off, and they are always around, like being able to share some information. Like, I had someone come, and she her father had passed away, and she was a lot younger. She recently got married. I didn't know that. I don't know her. I don't know anything about her, and to have dad come through and say, I was at your wedding, and he commented on her dress, like, I didn't like your dress because she wore like a very like a risky, it was kind of low. And he said,
I love that.
And so I'm telling her this, and she's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I wore, so being able to like share that with someone, like they were there when you had that child, they were there when they, they saw you get married, they know what you did when they crossed over, and they know how you honored them, so being able to share those moments and being able to see the relief and the love and to feel it is, like I keep saying, it's just such a humbling experience that I have some friends, my friend Carol, if you're watching, hi, every time I come out of a reading, I'm like, guess what, like, even I'm amazed every single time, oh, did I tell you this? So it's nice to be able to share that, but I'm just so amazed and humbled every single time.
It's true.
And so grateful.
Absolutely. And again, that's really what it's all about. And so I want to ask you,
Okay.
Like, what is like your preparation ritual when you go into a reading? Like, how is it that you get started and connect? Like, for everyone here that wants to kind of start tapping into that and maybe start doing the reads, what do you recommend as far as?
So first of all, I feel a lot of this work that we do, I don't even want to call it work, but it's really about self work. So really getting to know yourself, um, doing your own work. And when I mean doing your own work is being committed to your spiritual practice, whether that's meditation, whether that's journaling, whether that's self energy work, being committed to that first, because a lot of this is really distinguishing your own energy and your own power. And then tapping into source, tapping into this spiritual realm. So it is a lot of sitting. So there's meditation, and there's any medium will tell you that what they do is sit in the power. So they do a sit in the power meditation. And that's something you really, as a medium, have to commit to, because, when we do meditation, it's like we're going inward, we're going reflecting on ourselves. But when you're sitting in the power, you're expanding your energy. So and so that the spirit realm can meld and connect with you. And so I would say commit to any spiritual practice, because you really have to know yourself. You would really have to know your own energy before. So really commit to that. Before I go into a reading, or I do a healing, or I do Reiki on somebody, I set an intention, because I think intentions are huge. And sometimes I meditate, sometimes I don't, sometimes I say a little prayer. So it's all different, and it's very quick. I'll just say a quick little intention that I want, the session, whatever my client needs to hear, needs to feel, to please use me as a conduit for that, for their highest and greatest good. And so that's how I prepare. I don't have a set, where I sit and do the same thing every single time. I just listen to myself and check in with myself, how am I feeling? And a lot of it too is self-care. So that would be exercising, drinking plenty of water, making sure that you eat the right kind of foods, setting those boundaries with people around you, and making sure that your level of vibration is at a high level, keeping yourself clear and happy, and being present in all those moments. I feel there's a combination of things, but I would say that would be the most important.
Right. And I just have the biggest Kool-Aid smile right now, because what you're saying has been basically the work that I've been doing with my group
Mm-hmm.
for the past 2 years, as far as the spiritual path and cultivating your own gifts and abilities,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. It really does start with inner work.
Yes, for
And
sure.
yeah, exactly. And I totally 1000% agree with that, because knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, knowing even days like when I'm not feeling well, and let's say I have clients that day, I know I'm not at my best,
Right.
so I will let them know, hey, unfortunately, I'm not 100%, I'm not feeling well, so we may, we'll have to reschedule. And for the most part, most of my clients are usually open-minded about that. But really knowing of yourself and your body, because again, self-care is of the utmost importance.
Right. And it's very simple. And what I'm saying is nothing, enlightening or anything new. I mean, I'm not making any of this stuff up, and it's very simple. And, but it's very important to be committed to that first, I would say, because you're going to be meeting with people and seeing a lot of people that are not feeling well.
Exactly.
They have a lot of grief, and they have a lot of doubt, and they have a lot of pain. And so, you have to be very comfortable with yourself to be able to walk someone through that and hold space for them. So you have to hold space for yourself.
Exactly.
So show up for yourself first, so that you'll be able to hold that space for someone else. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be the best version of, a healer or a medium or a mom or, a woman. You're just not going to be able to do that in any role in your life. So show up for yourself first, and deal with and confront all those things in your past, and confront those your own grief and your own trauma. And you have to be able to do that if you're going to hold space for someone else that's going to go through that as well.
Exactly. And it is extremely simplistic. It's an extremely simplistic concept, right? Or advice.
Right.
However, it is so difficult for a lot of people, like, to just kind of.
And I say the same thing every single time someone leaves my space. I say the same thing every single time. Pray, meditate, journal. Pray, meditate, journal. Pray, meditate, journal.
Yes.
And it sounds so simple, but most people don't do it.
They don't.
So if you can just commit to that, 5 minutes is what I tell people. 5 minutes is all it takes. 5 minutes. Check in with yourself. Check in with your energy. But yeah, it's like I said. I mean, and I told my husband, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm so boring. Like, I'm just, it's so simple. I don't have anything like this great advice. It's just simple advice.
It's simple.
That is a reminder for me too,
Girl, it is simple, but important for everybody that is watching. Understand the most important part of this process when tapping in, cultivating your gifts, is to do the inner work. Yes. And I have this coaching series, and it's literally called Own Your Ish. That's what it's called, because it's really about connecting with, the light and the light body and our shadow selves, and understanding those things within us, firstly, that need to be healed. And yes. I have had friends that I was coaching and that are also readers with ability, and they would unknowingly, unconsciously project their, kind of negativity into a reading because they're not in a great space. Something, maybe on the way into the reading, they got in an argument with their spouse, so they're just all distorted and they're just like angry and feeling all this energy. And then they go into a reading and, it's not such good news, and they'll go in and, like I said, again, unconsciously project that. And the thing is that firstly, you got to understand, if you're not in a good space, because of something externally outside of this that happened, you're not going to give the greatest reading. You have to understand that. And like you said, it's not that we're all love and light, that's another thing, like, we're not going to be all love and light. Granted, there are going to be days that we're just going to feel awful. We're not going to feel our best. We're not going to, but right. These things really need to be worked through before a reading. I can't stress that enough. And I'm like, as a reader, and for those of you who want to start this as a business and do this for a living, understand that you have to really shield and kind of purge and work through those things before you go in and do a reading.
Right. And it's called a practice for a reason, because, you have to practice it, and it has to be daily. Sometimes it doesn't come naturally, but like I said, commit to the practice.
Commitment, absolutely. And doing it every day.
Expect resistance from yourself and from other people. If there is no resistance there, then you're probably not doing anything that's going to up-level you. But when you meet with resistance, well, wow, you're going to ascend a little bit, because there's some resistance there that you're going to have to work through. So that's great. That's a great sign that you're doing something amazing. If you're met with resistance, well, wow, then I'm doing something.
That's a sign. It's that sort of, exactly. And it's resistance that is you, that, like you said, it's that realization that you're changing, you're growing, and it's like your ego is going to come in and resist. Wait a minute, this is different. We don't normally do this. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. So
yeah.
if you don't have any resistance, then you need to be doing something.
Exactly. You're not about that growth life if there's no resistance going on. Because if you're, you know what I mean? Like,
and it doesn't feel good. I mean, it really does not feel good. I mean, I don't like it, but I'm excited about it, you know?
Exactly. But it's one thing, because again, resistance is like a natural egoic reaction to us when we're changing. It's kind of like a defense mechanism. It's one thing to feel resistance. It's another to like have a blockage, because sometimes blockages have to do with certain belief systems and maybe certain core wounds that we haven't fully worked through. So we just kind of shut down in a certain area.
Right.
And that also is why the self-care and the self-work is so important, because you know, kind of working through these blockages, working through the core wounds and healing all of that in order to just fully tap into source is of the utmost importance. And that is why, and this is just so amazing, because again, this is what I've been talking about and teaching for so long about how important it is to do the self-work, how important it is to promote self-care, not only for yourself, but for your clients. You know, you can't just talk the talk. You know what I'm saying? You got to walk the walk when it comes to this. And we have to, you know, as light workers, I feel we have to live by example. We can't just say, oh, do the work, and we're not working on ourselves, you know? Like, realistically, life is a school. We're always learning and growing all the way till we transition. You know what I mean? So
and then we'll still be learning, I'm sure.
Exactly, you know, and I feel it's so important to really, you know, have that way of, again, walking your talk. You know what I mean? And in this craft, in this line of work, it is so important, because if you're not doing it and you're off energetically, you're not doing the inner work, you know, like it, and the person clearly is having, you know, blockages as well. It's just going to be, you know, you guys kind of ping-ponging off of each other, that stuff. And again, you know, I feel in the spiritual community, that to me is not addressed enough, I feel. And I'm so elated that you have touched on that. The fact that the primary source of opening to your abilities is self-care, inner work. It is so that is the first thing that's where I go. Like, that's my foundation. You know, for everyone that's watching, guys, that is the root of what we do. It always starts there.
Right.
You know, and a lot of coaches, you know, a lot of readers and healers, they always say that, like, you know, everyone knows Trent Shelton. He always says it starts with you, right?
Yes, I completely agree.
It starts with you. And another known medium, and I love him to death, Chip Coffey. I love him. And he had that show on I believe it was A&E or Bravo, one of those networks. It was called Psychic Children, and it came out a couple of years ago. And it was like my favorite show ever, because it was just awesome. And he would mentor the children as mediums.
Okay, and I didn't watch the show, but I know who you're
like, you could just go on YouTube and catch like old episodes of him. And he's on Instagram, I believe. You could catch him, like, you know, he has an Instagram and stuff. And he has a new show now, also. But I used to watch the Psychic Children. I used to watch that religiously. And his platform was exactly what you said about boundaries. Okay. And he also, the way he explained it was also shielding and protecting yourself. There are times, like you said, you know, you want to go back to your regular mundane life. You don't want to have to, there's times where you just don't you just don't want to do that. You want to, you know, do the mundane things. And that's when you kind of shield yourself and say, you know, no, I'm not doing this today. Because there was a young girl, she was about, I think, 11 or 12, about the same age as your daughter. And she kept getting bothered by a spirit in her yard. I guess it was she lived in a very old property. And
Okay.
he would just bother her, and she was terrified. I mean, he wasn't doing anything to her, he would just come to her often. And it was like it got a little antagonistic, and that's when he said to her, you just tell him no. I
Yeah.
can't talk to you today. I don't want to talk to you today. You literally have to set that boundary with them, because
And
again,
that's what you would do. That's what you would do with anyone, you know,
exactly.
and to just know that, you know, you have the power, you have the strength, you know, if, you know, you're not going to take a phone call from someone that drains your energy, or you're not going to go to a party with people that you're not comfortable with. So, you know, that carries on into everyday life as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
And I feel like because he addressed that for the situations when you're bombarded. Like, you know, when I
Yeah.
think of that, I think of a Ghost with Oda Mae Brown, and she's in the room, and there's like spirits coming out of everywhere. And she's
Uh-huh.
just being bombarded, and she doesn't know how to turn it off. And she's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know, really, it's kind of, okay, you got to shield yourself. You got to say, no, no, okay, all right. First of
Yeah.
all, one at a time. I'm here to connect with a specific spirit or whatever the case may be. And like you said, boundaries are just to be applied in every day with everyone, because that
Right.
is how you know, interact with people in from a healthy space.
Right.
Boundaries are healthy. You know what I mean? Even as a medium, you have to incorporate them.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't go around, you know, and I think too is kind of media and TV shows, you know, no one's walking around just randomly going up to people and giving readings, you know.
no.
The show may look like that, but, you know, they're signing waivers and
Yeah,
contracts, you know, because they're on TV. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't go around, you know, occasionally maybe, you know, I might sense something, but I'm not going to just go up to someone and, you know, I don't know who they are. They didn't ask for this. It's none of my business. I'm not going to go up and just say, hey, you know, your mom's here. And, you know, no, it's not like that. And I think a lot
it's
of people,
imposing. It's like you're
well,
imposing
I
on a
mean, you know,
person.
there's also, you know, code of ethics that you should follow as
Exactly.
well. Because it is someone's space, it's someone's energy. And if they did not ask for it, then you could be doing more harm than good. So that would really be, you know, something to keep in mind. You know,
Absolutely.
maybe when people are first starting to realize their abilities, you know, it's exciting. Oh my gosh, I can do this, you know, or something. And maybe they do want to go around doing this, but, you know, that's not really the loving way to go about it. So yeah, so don't do that.
Yeah. And you know, I remember a couple of years ago getting into a heated debate about this with a colleague friend of mine. She's a medium, and she would do that. Like, she would just go up to people and tell them, and she would get really upset when people would not react pleasant to her. Some people would think she's crazy, or why are you telling me that, or
Yeah.
and
And
I
you guys, you know, you could be doing more harm and really putting a fear into someone. You know, if they're not asking for it, they don't understand it. But, you know, you want it to be helpful and loving. And so I would definitely, I mean, that's just my truth. Somebody else may feel differently about it, but I personally don't do that.
exactly, and I don't
It
either.
has happened maybe once or twice where I've really got the nudging to give someone a message. But in those instances, Spirit has arranged either a chance meeting or set up some kind of communication. And so it wasn't just sort of random. It was, you know, I do feel it was spirit guided, but normally, no,
Exactly.
no, I
And
don't.
I don't either. I just, because I noticed the chat wasn't going on here, so it wasn't active. So I'm like, maybe
No,
I need
that's
to
okay.
I need to refresh here because I'm sure we got some comments here in the chat. Oh yeah, we have Tiffany, Angela, Carol. Welcome, guys. Thank you for watching and tuning in. So we're gonna do a Q&A in a bit. I just want to, because I wanted to say something quickly, and then we could kind of do a Q&A, guys. For any of you in the chat who have questions for Kathy about mediumship, we're gonna go and do that in a few minutes. But I wanted to continue with this discussion about boundaries, excuse me. And like I said, I had a colleague friend of mine, and we got in a heated debate about this because she was like, well, if it comes in, I feel I have to tell them. I'm like, but if they're just a random person you don't know, I feel like you said there's a certain code of ethics. It may be you imposing, if they're not responding pleasantly, it's because they weren't open to it. You have to, again, discern, there has to be discernment involved. And I remember she had went as far to say that that she doesn't believe boundaries apply to us because of our abilities. I'm like, boundaries apply, period, because it is a healthy way of doing what we do and having a respect for our, fellow man, setting your own boundaries and respecting theirs. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's like, when someone gives you their opinion and you didn't ask for it, that doesn't always feel
it's unsolicited, good. Right? So it's like you're giving someone, oh, okay, all right, we're good. Okay. I was like, no, where did you go?
I'm using my phone and my battery's like beep, beep.
Okay, so yeah, so that's exactly it, because it's like unsolicited. You know what I mean? Right. This person didn't ask for that. They, like you said, they may not be, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually prepared for that information. And you're imposing that on them, and it's not cool. And I remember I explained that to her, and that's when she was like, you know what, you're right, I didn't see it that way. I'm like, yeah, it's like when, just like you said, when you're giving someone unsolicited advice, they didn't ask for it. You know what I mean?
No, and so it would be the same thing, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Okay, guys, so we're gonna go to the chat real quick. So if any of you in the chat, yes, we only have a few minutes left. So if any of you have some questions for Kathy's, write them in, and chat now or forever hold your peace.
You can always email me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm trying to see if anybody has any questions or anything they want to add in, but
okay, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I guess for the most part, let me see. I'm just gonna refresh again. There's a lag here. Okay. No, I think okay. So no one has asked any questions. Okay. So I mean, we covered a lot. So.
Yeah, and like I said, if anyone has any questions about mediumship or anything like that, feel free to email me, and I will answer to the best of my ability.
Yes. And Kathy's information, guys, is in is down below. Her website is down below, so that has her mail link, so you could just drop a email to her through her site. Again, it is kathycourtney.net.
Yes.
So that is her direct website, guys, and that'll be her primary source of contacting her.
Yeah, and there's some information about mediumship on there, and there's a little bit more information about me if anyone's interested. It's just very short, but a little bit about myself and my journey. And so, yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer that.
Exactly. And again, my information is down below too. So if you guys, again, I do have an email where I have the hashtag AskChas. So
yeah, I need that.
So if you guys have any questions, AskChas questions, my email is down below in the information box. So Kathy's information as well. And again, guys, she is amazing. I can't even bring into words the gift that you have, and you're so awesome at what you do. So guys, if you're definitely, get in touch with her if you want a mediumship reading. Again, I highly recommend her. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
Maybe I'm an impartial party because we're friends, but no, honestly, like I said, as a client, you are awesome. So guys,
thank you. I appreciate that so much.
I'm so excited to have had you on today.
Thank you. This was fun, and thank you again for asking me. This is really, it means a lot to me to be able to share this. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You are so welcome, and thank you again. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Again, if you want to get in touch with me or Kathy, our information's down below. We're all over social media, and all the information is there. So thank you guys, and I will see you soon. Kathy, thank you for coming on.
Thank
Love you to death. Love you to pieces.
Tell your mom I said hi.
Interesting choice of words. I said love you to death. Like a little mediumship joke there. But yes. Okay, guys. Again, this is Indigo Talk with Chastity Ryan of Indigo Ray Healing, guys. And I wish you all a wonderful weekend. And I will see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.